Considering the recent new lunar fever as of late, I thought it would be appropriate if we got another interesting story about the moon. Specifically, a trip to the moon. And this time, vampires are not kidnapping you in their yachts and taking you to the lunar surface. No, 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 no. This is a much more interesting tale of weird. This story was written by Robert Bloch in 1939. And he answers a very interesting question. Where do werewolves come from?
Werewolf. Their castle.
Why are you talking that way?
I thought you wanted to.
No, I don't want to.
Suit yourself. I'm easy.
Anyway, your friendly neighborhood demonic Ravenwolf October is back with another weird tale, which is entitled Flowers from the Moon. We start off our weird tale with a scientist by the name of Terry, who is waiting with bated breath for the return of a rocket that he helped design and calculated its trip to the moon. Although being part of a scientific exploration into the unknown is very exciting to Terry, he is also very worried about Edna, the woman of his admiration, who is part of the crew of the spacecraft. Fortunately, he was able to find the rocket descend gradually in a field that he calculated it would land in. And not only that, Edna comes out first and embraces him. However, their reunion is quite brief. They are swarmed by reporters who berate them with, well, these specific questions about the mission and their personal lives because, well, reporters kind of suck, I guess. Because these reporters are quite annoying, Edna asks Terry if he can try to get rid of them. And he obliges her by doing kind of an illegal sounding way. He gets in his car and he attempts to ram the crowd, which causes the reporters to disperse. Wow, dude, I don't want to get on your bad side. Yikes. Next to emerge from the spacecraft was Edna's father, Dr. Jackson, who was followed by the captain, Zurrit, who Terry has noted has lost quite a bit of weight and looks extremely tired, such as Dr. Jackson looks as well. After departing the capsule, the captain then tries to close the door rather quickly behind him, but it is shoved open, revealing Charles DeVoe, who Terry literally calls his rival. And he describes him as Charles the Suave, Charles the Laughing, Charles the Debonair, Charles the sleek, black-haired, handsome scientist. Who is in love with whom here? Jeez. But this situation gets even more weird because Terry notices that Charles looks completely different despite the fact he just described him as the most handsomest man in the world or something. From his demeanor and his drooling teeth, Terry determines that Charles is mad. Because, yeah, that's how people determine people's sanity, by just looking at them. Didn't you know that? No? Okay. I guess Terry was kind of right, although, because then Charles leaps out of the spacecraft onto the shoulders of one of the reporters. I don't know if that means he just tackled him or he's doing like an acrobatic thing. It's a very weird description. But then he takes a bite out of the reporter's neck, killing him instantly. Seeing this, the captain acts quickly and pulls out his revolver, you know, that thing that all astronauts had in the 30s specifically, and shoots Charles, knocking him back. They then pull the crumpled corpse of Charles into the car with them that they are all seated in, and they drive off, potentially leaving the bleeding corpse of one of the reporters along with the crowd to just stare at it. Believe it or not, this bizarre scene doesn't come back in any way or play another role in the story. No police visit their lab, no other reporters visit their lab. Just nothing. It just sort of happened, and then the story continues. They do mention that there are headlines about a madman who is a part of their crew and one of the reporters gets killed, but there's no repercussions. I guess because it's a short story, but man, a lot happens in the first few minutes of this story. They return to the lab, where they go over what they encountered on the lunar surface, and Charles is upstairs, chained to a bed, still alive, squirming. Terry recounts his feelings for Edna, as well as what he had to do to help design the rocket and plot their course to the moon. So I guess this was a privately funded trip to the moon, I suppose? The journey to the moon had taken them 3 days there and 3 days back, and they spent 4 days on the lunar surface. Also, interestingly enough, Dr. Jackson believed that there was life on the moon somehow. Terry even recounts for some reason that the mission was a success, even though one of your crewmates came back mad and bit the neck of a reporter. But I guess that's a success for Terry. I mean, what's one reporter, right? Obviously, because of the unusual happenings that occurred upon their return, Terry desperately wants to know what they found on the moon and what happened to them. But for some reason, they seem very hesitant to tell him. Dr. Jackson then concedes and says that Terry does have a right to know, and he shows them what they brought back from the moon. In a satchel bag, Dr. Jackson pulls out some flowers, which Terry describes as white orchid flowers waxen as the face of death. Okay. Dr. Jackson states that they found them inside a crater that they had descended into outside of the mouths of some caves. After bringing them back from their ship, they had unusual dreams and heard wolfish howling. While the doctor is describing this to Terry, he goes sort of into kind of this hallucinogenic trip as the scent of the flowers is starting to send him to these weird, bizarre places inside of his mind. But at the last possible moment, Edna shakes him out of this bizarre hallucinogenic trip. Before Dr. Jackson can continue his experiences on the moon, they hear a ghastly sound come from the bedroom upstairs. Now, in this situation, you would think maybe keeping the door closed and locked would be the best course of action. But remember, these are ultra super smart scientists, so of course they open the door. How did you guys get to the moon again? Dr. Jackson, being the first to open the door, finds a wolf-like creature lunge at him and rips apart his throat, killing him. It appears that Charles has completely transformed into a werewolf,
with paws and claws to show it.
Terry tries to fight the thing, but it manages to escape outside of the open door, being unleashed upon the world. Terry breaks the news to Edna, who is waiting in the lab for them, that Dr. Jackson, her father, is dead. Edna tells Terry that they must defeat this great evil immediately. Edna confides to Terry about her theory on the flowers. And she knows this is correct because, fortunately, her father collected a series of books. Which, considering this is a weird tale, they are, of course, on witchcraft and demonology. Because isn't it always? Anyway, the books tell of a legend of a flower that grows in the Orient, and anyone who inhales the flower will physically transform into a werewolf. The legends also say that they come from space from seeds that drifted specifically from the moon. Edna goes on and tells him about how the moon turns people into lunatics and how the moon is a very mysterious body that controls the oceans, so why not control people's minds? Before she can continue on with her ravings, the captain walks in and tries to snatch the flowers away from them. The captain claims that he needs the flowers for research and calls them cowards for not wanting to figure out their mysterious origin. However, both Edna and Terry notice that the captain has physical alterations to his body, and he starts to sneer and growl at them as he is talking, eventually physically transforming into a werewolf himself. Before the situation can get any more hairy, Charles, in his werewolf form, breaks into the lab and tries to take the flowers away from the now transformed captain, and they continue a scuffle and a fight over the maddening blossoms. It is in this fight that Terry takes the flowers away from them, and him and Edna flee back to where the rocket is. They both come up with a plan to lure the werewolves back to the rocket with the flowers, before the whole world ends up like the moon, a barren wasteland that is inhabited by these cursed werewolves and these terrible blossoms. The plan kinda works. The werewolves are definitely lured to the rocket, but of course, something goes wrong. Terry starts to gradually inhale the scent of the flowers himself and starts to lose his grip on reality. He then thinks it would be best if he and Edna went back to the moon on the rocket so nobody else is infected, taking the accursed maddening flowers with him. It is on his journey to the moon, I guess, where he writes this account of what has occurred, and he notes the physical transformations that he is now going through as they go through space to the moon. It is then that he notices that Edna is going through the same transformation, and maybe she will kill him first. And this is where our strange werewolf tale comes to an end. If you are a furry like me, you definitely enjoy a good werewolf story. And these werewolves are definitely the real deal, with snouts, fur, and claws. At the very least, it's worth checking out for that. My only criticism with the story is that I think it goes kind of quickly, like the author is trying to get to the conclusion that werewolf shenanigans are going on. as quickly as possible in order to not lose the reader. Unfortunately, in doing this, it does kind of ruin any form of possible reality with the story. But then again, maybe that's the point, because it is about werewolves living on the moon. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tale. I certainly did. Like and subscribe, and, I don't know, don't do drugs, kids! It might turn you into a werewolf. Wait, I'm a furry. I want that to happen!